A small Cambridge inn called the White Horse. The Reformation came.
Restless is raw, unscripted, reformed radio.
Pastor Michael, the holiday season, shoopity-doop and bippity-bop, and it's time for Restless. One more, it's not going to be a normal episode of Restless, Pastor Michael, because you and I are preparing ourselves for the true Restless marathon that is the 12 Days of Restless, where we will podcast 14 days in a row, of course, not counting the Lord's Day. Not the Lord's Day. That's a day you should be in church, not listening to us. And
unless you're in our churches, then technically you do have to listen to us too.
It would be helpful if you would listen at that point. But Pastor Michael, how are you doing? Pastor Michael, in the upcoming year, will be helping me source more episode content.
Yes.
But today
I have a list, by the way.
I love it.
Our list, a lot of them are things where it's like, that'll take a little more time. I've got some presbytery work that I've been doing that has just taken up a ton of my extra time. And so I can't get there yet. But after January, I will be, I'm taking a nice vacation. I will, Lord willing, be done with a lot of the extra presbytery work I've been working on. And I think that I will be able to finally actually put the time I've said I'm going to put into Restless. I did, by the way, I set aside a whole extra morning every week to really focus on mostly Restless stuff, a little bit of other things, but mostly Restless stuff. And I did it solid for a couple of weeks. I was pumping out a lot of little videos and stuff like that. And then this presbytery stuff came and I was like, and there goes that time.
And that's what we'd rather have you do it on. And so today, Pastor Michael, we are doing a holiday episode. You are going to adjudicate a dispute between me and John Piper. Now, obviously, John Piper doesn't know we're in a dispute, but you're going to adjudicate.
It's you and John Piper in an elevator, and he's saying, "I don't even know who you are."
Exactly. It is actually between me and a clip of John Piper that back before we were clipping sermons, Desiring God clipped this from the old YRR days. And so since today is brought to you by the 12 Days of Restless, I thought a good thing to remind you to be excited. If there are topics you want us to talk about in the 12 Days of Restless, if there are things you want us to react to make this a holiday themed episode. Now, Pastor Michael, I need to set up this clip for just a minute with just a little thing. So Pastor Michael, obviously, in the Christmas season, for those outside of Southern Presbyterian circles, in a lot of places you go, and I'm going to explain this for the Southern Presbyterians who don't know what Christmas trees or wreaths are, or, they don't know anything about this. I want to make sure they understand. A lot of places you go, not in your home, of course, they play music, a very special seasonal kind of music.
In your home, it's only hymns, of course. It's only metrical psalms.
They're not on the Incarnation this time of year. You would never bind someone's conscience that way.
You wouldn't want to harm somebody's spiritual health by celebrating the incarnation of our Lord.
I know. You wouldn't. And so I'm going to explain this. But also, there is some secular music. Now, you're probably more comfortable with this music. But we sing about guys like Santa Claus, Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph. Now, some of you, from the more fundamentalist listeners, are like, no, we don't. Those are demons. Haunted Cosmos should look into that because those are demons. And so I'm just going to make a lot of not friends along the way here. But I have decided all of that, like kind of secular schlock Christmas music, I think that should all basically, I do want recordings of that music, by the way. And I have realized the ideal style, and someone out there is going to get this, is if you have heard Billy Joel's
Fact check, it's Bruce Springsteen.
Santa Claus is Coming to Town live recording, where it's literally him like on a stage, like just, he does not give into this holiday concert, and now he's doing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and he's only doing it because they have a saxophonist there, and he's going to do a really long saxophone solo. But he's like, you guys aren't good. You guys aren't good. And then he's like, he doesn't care. And I started listening to that song this year to bother my wife. And so you can also judge me for that if you want. But here's become the problem, Pastor Michael. I now legitimately enjoy
You
that
like it.
I'll even make it worse. Last night, my family watched The Santa Claus starring Tim Allen from the 90s. And I just want everyone to know how hilarious. So my 3-year-old daughter looked at me about halfway through the movie and went, "Hey, Dad, why was Santa dead on his lawn?" And I just was like, dude, this is classic. I was like, we need to embrace how dark a setup this is. A toy executive accidentally kills Santa and assumes his identity. That is Merry Christmas, everyone.
A divorced dad in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so what we are going to adjudicate is my attitude towards Santa Claus too cavalier, or is John Piper's too much of a buzzkill? Because one of the earliest sermon clips I remember seeing back when they first started sharing these was shared by Desiring God 11 years ago. Wow, only 4,800 views. So only I apparently saw this. So I'm happy to share this with new people. But it is called Bad News. Santa's Coming to Town. So, Pastor Michael, are you prepared to watch about the bad news that Santa's coming to town?
I'm excited.
You better watch out. You better not cry. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. So get your act together. That is not good news for me.
Pastor Michael, wants Santa Claus coming to town is not good news.
That is so funny. That is so good. Oh boy, that is so good.
All right, let's keep going.
That's bad news. No gospel in it at all. You go that way. You go to that temple to meet your treasure if you want. But I've got better news for you. Way better for sinners. And everybody's walking into the holidays sinning. Everybody. You won't be good. And if he knows what you are doing, you're gone. And we are gone. So I got a better temple for you.
He makes it sound like Santa's coming to blow some people away. You know what I mean? Like if you've been naughty, guess what Santa's gonna do? He's taking you out.
Yeah.
Right? Like the naughty list is a hit list. Don't know if you knew that. That's what it sounds like.
Oh man, it's the
intensity. The intensity.
It's like, what if Advent was like the worst? And Santa is the angel of death about to show up at your house. So, Pastor Michael, we'll play the rest of this. But the question I'm driving at is, so my children don't believe Santa exists. I'm very comfortable as a character in my home, and the Billy Joel, especially the Billy Joel version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
To be clear, it's Bruce Springsteen.
And so what we have to decide is my view too cavalier, or is
Cavalier?
Cavalier. I'm sorry, not Kevlar.
Kevlar. Is my view too Kevlar? Well, you're going to need that when Santa comes to town. You know, because you've been naughty. You need that Kevlar when he shows up.
Or is John Piper taking this a little too seriously? Is this, are we is this right? Like the amount of like, again, right? As we've talked about that, like John Piper, super sincere, kind of always sounds like he's going to cry. We know that is like, there's a time for everyone in their life but when it starts, you better watch out. Like I can't do it. I need it to be Billy Joel, and I can't play that song because it will get this podcast, and if this is on YouTube, taken down. I need you, listener, to go listen.
I will listen to it right after this, by the way. I better cue it up so I don't forget.
All right.
I
play the last
kind of thing.
Okay, go ahead.
This kind of thing, by the way, is something that was very common in the YRR. It's very common in a lot of different circles within evangelicalism, but it's like a really shallow way of looking at cultural traditions as if they were like, as if everything was this heightened spiritual thing. And that's not to say that everything doesn't matter in some way. It's not to say that people don't take Christmas in the wrong way, or they think about Santa Claus in the wrong way, or whatever. There are problems when it comes to Christmas time and our understanding of Christmas time and consumerism and all that stuff. But also, it's just a fun thing that people do, and that's actually okay. It's actually okay to have fun little traditions where you jokingly, when you get to the point where it's like you're really pretending Santa's real, you're trying to not let any of the other parents let your child know that Santa's not real. That's destructive, and I think like that gets into the territory of actually lying.
Because you are lying,
Yes, because it is actual deceit. But if you're just having fun, right? If you're just like goofing around with it, that's okay. In our house, my wife started a tradition where, and I hope my kids don't hear this because then they're going to know it's not me, it's just my wife doing this. But she started a tradition where, she will take, as kind of like, instead of doing stockings, she'll give our kids little gifts starting around now, leading up to Christmas. But she'll say where they're going to be, and then they'll go to that place. And then there's a note because some character she made up stole these things and hid them somewhere else. And she'll write a little rhyme to like get them to find these things. And she changes the name like every other day or whatever. And our kids don't think that's real, but they do really, like, they're constantly trying to figure out, wait, did mom do this or did dad do this? And they keep like changing and then thinking they're right and being like, see, we figured it out. Yeah. Last night, my son Haddon was trying to find something that I had written on so that they could compare my handwriting to the handwritten note the next morning. Right. It's just a fun thing. But it's not like it's not actually going to totally shape and form their worldview.
Right.
I don't think they're going to get to the point where they're, every year they're like, oh no, this thing, because I wasn't good enough, like this thing took our presents. And now, and that's not even it, by the way, it's not like, well, since you've been naughty, you don't get gifts this year. But I just think it is too self-serious. And maybe this is the millennial in us who don't take anything seriously enough.
Right.
But it does seem so over the top self-serious that it comes across as very fake and very phony to me.
Yes. You're
and not to say he's being fake about it. I think John Piper is very sincere. I think that's how it comes across.
I think John Piper is truly concerned that Santa Claus is coming to town does not properly understand the gospel. That it is not. I don't doubt that. All right, let's watch the rest of this, and then I will ask. Yeah, because I'm in large agreement, so I don't want to beat that dead horse because I'm in large agreement with you, but I want to come towards
it. You can choose the Jesus way of connecting with God, the Jesus temple, the Santa temple, or the Jesus temple. I lay down my life for the sheep.
I know.
I have authority to take it up again, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Jesus is the new meeting place with God. And he says, not, better watch out, you better not cry, you better not shout, I'm telling you why. He doesn't say that. He says, whoever comes to me, I will never cast him out. That's good news. That's good Christmas news. That's the best Christmas gift you could ever receive.
So,
Can I steal, man?
yes.
I think he would say, I'm just using it as an analogy. It's Christmas time. People hear this song a lot. What if
I
that
think that's a bad
was
steal, man,
the
though.
gospel hope? Right? What if that was the gospel hope? That
Sure.
wouldn't be gospel hope because
Yeah.
you're a sinner going into Christmas time. But if you're using it as an analogy, but then you're so self-serious, like, how could you worship at that temple, at the temple of Santa Claus, when he's just going to condemn you? Right?
It could be a great analogy for kids to grasp the shift.
Yes.
Here's the other concern I have, that taken to its nth degree, the idea that Santa wants you to be good is the biggest problem with the Santa myth is, let me read you perhaps I should read a verse from Once in David's Royal City. So this is a
great Christmas hymn.
Great Christmas hymn. Let me read you the first line so you can get excited about it. Some of you, maybe first time, though it is in the Trinity hymnal. You could sing this any time of the year, by the way.
Sure.
But let me give you. So the first verse. Once in David's royal city stood lowly cattle shed, where a mother laid her baby in the manger of his bed. Mary was that mother mild, and Jesus Christ her little child, right? And we talk about how he's come to earth from heaven, right? It kind of walks through his life, right? And how he will be crowned, But let me read you a verse that, the third verse that you would sing after talking about our Savior holy who lived on earth. And throughout his wondrous childhood, he would honor and obey, love and watch that lowly maiden in whose gentle arms he lay. Christian children all must be mild, obedient, and good as he. So now I don't want you to sing that song staring at your children with a passive.
Otherwise, when Santa comes, that's the next verse. Because when Santa comes, he's going to get you otherwise.
Santa's coming in the total tank, kids. Wow, that was a Christmas song instructing children to remember their Savior was an obedient and submissive child to a parent.
Yeah.
And so I'll just to be clear, if you're one of the people out there still doing Christmas, how could you? If you're one of those people, I don't want the main message of Christmas to be, you better be good for goodness sakes. I want that to be something
Bruce Springsteen.
Things with a buzz that you walk to Christmas lights in here. I want it to be like the eggnog of your life. A thing you should do once a year, but you'd be sick of it any more than that. That's what right. I want.
You will die if this is all you had, right?
Yes. I also think you're right that, and again, I think if you just use it as an illustration, especially for kids, I don't think it's a problem. But I do think
recently in a sermon or in something I did, it was, maybe it was just a short homily, something to our church. I mentioned something about like the nature of so many of the Christmas songs that we hear right now have this idea that by mere sentiment, the world will get better, right? I think I was talking about the coming of Christ into the world as the Prince of Peace, right? That he will bring peace. There's this sense of like, well, if we all just feel better about things, then the whole world would, there would be no more war and there'd be no more pain and everybody would be happy. Isn't that the wonderful Christmas message? And that's goofy, right? But It doesn't, I don't like the sentimental Christmas songs.
Yeah. Just to be clear, Pastor Michael was preaching on the coming of the Prince of Peace unrelated to the holiday season.
I believe the title was Advent Week 2.
But what you're actually doing, and I sorry to say this, what you're doing is, I'm not saying John Piper isn't good, but what you're doing, and maybe he didn't intend to be, but again, by the end when you're yelling at this temple, like you're making, there is a actual problem that prevents the Christmas message from hitting harder when we've turned it all into sentiment. So that Jesus being a baby is just another thing that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Like Tim Allen getting broken out of prison by elves.
Kittens.
Yeah, exactly. Like that it can be sentiment. That's a deeper level of cultural and audience analysis than you better watch out. Like
Santa Claus is coming. I want Sopranos like voice.
That's right.
About Santa coming to town. You better be good.
So you guys, so this is all I have to say is we are excited for Christmas Day to begin the 12 days of Restless with you. I know many of you have no plans that day, and so it's the perfect day for us to launch the 12 days of Restless. Thank you for listening. We have got to get out of here because we have to at least record one of these 12 days of Restless, because if we don't, guys, I don't know how we're going to keep up. Make America restless again. Mara, let's go. Subscribe, like the podcast.
You guys know what time of year it is? It's almost time for the 12 days of Restless, and Bruce Springsteen won't be bringing anything to Matt this year.